At the start of the movie, we are introduced to a beautiful nurse. She was taking care of her patient in the hospital. The patient was an old woman whose condition was very bad. She was also having trouble breathing. That's why the nurse, whose name is Gwen, she comes to that woman and turns off her oxygen. She also shut down her breathing pipe. Because of this, the old woman's breath was stopped. Surprisingly, after that, Gwen makes noise in the hospital. She calls the doctor. When the doctors came and were saving that old woman, Gwen was standing by the door laughing. Here we find out that Gwen is a psycho-mad nurse. She liked to see her patients in pain. Anyway, the doctors had saved that old woman. Gwen leaves after seeing all this. Looking at her, it could be assumed that she had no regret for such an act. In the film, we are shown a scene in which a girl named Mira was living happily with her husband and son. When her husband was talking to him, his son comes to him and says, "Mom, my feet are hurting." Here we find out that Mira's son had a disease, due to which he could not walk properly without support. Mira talks to her husband about her son, that he climbs the stairs himself. Mira's husband hears this and says, "Oh, come on, don't be so scared. Nothing happens to our son." Then we see Gwen, a psycho nurse in Mira's house, who Mira had kept to take care of her son. Here, Gwen used to live in Mira's house like a family member. Now, the four of them have breakfast together. During breakfast, Mira's son had dropped his stretchers on the stairs, with whose support he used to walk. But as we know, she can't do the right thing. She had loosened her bench, so that when Mira's son took her away, she would fall down. Gwen used to do all this for her own fun, as we had seen in the beginning of the story. Anyway, after this, Mira's husband was ready to go to the office. He stands near Mira. Gwen was jealous of Mira because she started liking Mira's husband. Meanwhile, Mira's friend comes home, who was sitting and talking to Mira. At that time, Gwen started listening to her while playing with Mira's son. Mira's friend was telling her, "Mira, you will have to hire another nurse for your son. I think your son and husband have started liking Gwen a little too much." Mira tells her friend, "No, it's not like that. You are thinking too much." Meanwhile, Mira hears her son's voice. She says, "You know, Gwen did all this." She scolds Gwen a lot because of her son's fall, because she felt that she did not take good care of her son. Her son reassures Mira, saying, "No, Mom, this isn't because of Gwen. It was all my fault." Mira calls the doctor, and she had hired a new nurse for her son. At night, she also apologizes to Gwen, that she shouted at her for no reason. Gwen says, "No, it's not your fault." Gwen is a mother, and a mother is very worried about her child. And although we know that Gwen did all this, after that she makes a tea for Mira, which was probably for free. We see Mira, who joins that society, in which there were people like her son. They all had the same disease. Mira tells them and starts crying. She says, "I feel very bad." After that, she comes home. Gwen gives her tea, which she had made for her. As soon as Mira drank tea, she fell asleep. After a while, the doctor comes home. When Mira was sleeping, she brings her son's stretcher. When she was going to give it to Dr. Mira's son, Gwen stopped her and said, "You go, I will give it to him." On the way, the doctor says, "I may know you. I have seen you somewhere." As soon as Mira wakes up, she says, "I promise. I will definitely tell you." On the same evening, Gwen goes to the doctor's house and tells him, "You were right. You know me. I also often remember you." After saying this, she took the doctor and put an injection in his arm. Here we find out that at the beginning of the story, the doctor saved the life of the old woman. Gwen was afraid that Dr. Mira's husband would not know this, so she put a drug injection. and killed him. On the same night, Mira gets a call from a man who was telling his name as David. He says, "I am a member of the same society that you have joined because of your son's disease." He also tells that the disease that your son has, my son also has the same disease. The picture that David had put in his profile, it is a little blurry, which he was not able to see correctly. Here David tells that his wife is dead. That's why I have kept a nurse for my son. Mira listens to this and says, "You did very well." That's when we find out that the man named David was no one else but Gwen, who was talking to Mira by changing her voice with the help of a computer. In the morning, her friend comes to Mira's house and says that she had dropped something on Mira's husband's shirt. Gwen takes Mira's husband's shirt to the laundry to clean it. That's when Mira's friend went inside to take her purse, and she sees that Gwen is smelling Mira's husband's shirt. She feels a little strange to see this, and she also had a doubt that Gwen had started liking Mira's husband. But she does not tell this to her friend Mira, because she was afraid that her family might be ruined. At night, Gwen again talks to Mira as David and asks her about her son. Mira says that yes, my son is a little normal now, but I did not like it at all the day he fell. After talking so much, Gwen quickly goes to Mira so that she can catch him that she is talking to a man, and she was also successful in this game. On the way, she says to Mira's husband, "I just heard Mira. She was probably talking to someone." She wanted Mira's husband to doubt her and leave Mira. But here her game goes upside down. Mira's husband speaks in favor of his wife and says that she is doing a lot of work these days, and her sleep is also not complete. Maybe that's why she is a little worried. After hearing all this, Gwen hugged Mira's husband and said goodnight and left. Gwen actually wanted to get Mira's husband anyway. The next morning we see that Gwen and Mira's husband were looking for an excuse to sleep. When Mira wakes up, Gwen has done all the work in her house. Then she gets a call from her friend who thanks Mira, saying that you remembered my birthday. But Mira is a little confused and surprised because she did not send the flowers. Gwen comes to her and says that you forgot your friend's birthday, so I sent flowers to her house. Mira starts walking unconscious. Mira says that maybe I should get a doctor checked. Don't talk to my husband about this. Gwen says, "Why do you need to go to the doctor? I will take your blood phone and get it tested in the lab." Now at night, Gwen talks to Mira again as David. Mira tells her about her problems. Then her husband and son came here. Seeing Jeannie, Mira cuts the call. Mira wanted to take her son to the room, but she was sleeping on the sofa. She receives a message indicating that David is a fraud. When Mira's husband comes to her in the morning, he sees the message on his phone. She does not understand who David is and why Mira talks to him. At the same time, her son also thinks why his mother is sleeping so much. Gwen did all the work in Mira's house. Still, Mira thought she was wrong, so now she apologizes to Gwen. Then Mira gets a message again that David is a fraud. Gwen also read it. Mira somehow prepares herself to go to the office. And she came to the office. She meets her friend and tells him that my blood reports are absolutely correct. And Gwen was right. "I just need rest." Her friend says, "Should I tell you something?" Show that doctor who has nothing to do with Gwen. Then she gets a mail from David, in which it was written that the man who is messaging you about me wants to defame you. Then she also gets a mail from that man who was saying that your son's life is in danger. After reading these two mails, Mira comes home, and she was also very worried. She had also told Gwen about this, and she says to meet that man. "I'm going to the cafe in the evening." Mira tells him that Gwen's words are true. His wife is cheating him. The next morning, Mira goes to a cafe to meet that man, who was actually David. He says that my name is David, and I have never talked to you. He also says that my wife had blood cancer. One day, he got a call from a man who used to talk to him. He told him not to go to the doctor, because of which my wife started listening to him. He also shows her the picture of that man. Then Mira comes to know that this picture is of the same man, who was still talking to Mira as David. But still, Mira had no doubt on Gwen. Then outside we see her husband, who had come here following Mira. He also sees his wife hugging David, with which he believes that Mira is really cheating him. There was a friend of Mira in the house who comes to give her her bag. Gwen takes her bag at home. Then Mira's friend says to Gwen that I know. You like Mira's husband. I saw you wearing a shirt that day. Stay away from Mira's family. If you try to harm them even a little, then no one will be worse than her. Saying this when she was about to leave, Gwen attacks her from behind with a big bullet. To kill her, she also gave her a drug injection. And then when she leaves there and comes home, she sees Mira, who is cooking food. Gwen talks to her and steals the knife, with which Mira was cutting vegetables. She now takes her to David's house. And here we come to know that Gwen had already been the nurse of David's wife, and she talked to her as a man and also told her to stop her husband. Here, Gwen also kills David with the same knife, and she had dropped Mira's phone, which she had taken for his blood test, which seemed that Mira had killed David. That night, Mira's husband also comes home, in a state of intoxication because he was very upset because of his wife. Gwen tries to get close to him by looking at his message, which was of David, in which it was written that I could not sleep because of my little boy. Then Mira's eyes fall on the bottle that was in her hand, on which it was written little boy. What Gwen had written, she remembers that. David and Gwen always use little boy love when she goes to throw the water in the bottle that Gwen had given her. She feels like some powder mixed in water. Here, Mira understood that the water was poisoned. Mira now goes to Gwen's room, where she found a book in which it was written about poisonous drugs. She gets a lot of poisonous drugs from under the bed. Meanwhile, she sees that Gwen had come home. When Mira opens the door, Gwen understands that she did not drink water from the bottle, because of which she was still awake. After drinking water, she went to the hospital with Mira's son, where she used to get her therapy. Mira wanted to stop her son, but he did not stop and went with Gwen. After Gwen and her son left, she again goes to Gwen's room and starts making videos in which she was telling about all the events of Gwen. She had also called her husband and told him about it. But when Gwen came home, she found out that Mira had found out everything about her. When she comes home, Mira's son was not with her. Mira tells her to go to her son. On the way, Gwen tells Mira that I have worked as a nurse for so many years. No one has ever kept me like a family member, like you woke me up in your house. So don't worry, I will kill you and take your place. Gwen was saying this because she liked Mira's husband. On the other hand, Mira's husband also comes home. When she does not meet Mira at home, she gets her phone, in which she watches her recorded video, from which she also came to know the reality of Gwen. On the other side, Gwen came home with Mira, where she tells her that I have killed the doctor, your friend. Mira was very worried. She starts looking for her son at Gwen's house. She says that your son is still in the clinic. I have come here to kill you, and I have killed David with that knife on which you have fingerprints. The police will consider you a murderer, and your son and husband will hate you. That's why when Mira starts running from Here, Gwen caught her and was trying to escape from the house. In the end of the story, we are shown Mira, her husband and son, who had started living a happy life again. At the same time, Gwen was punished for committing so many murders. So you saw how dangerous Gwen was. If you keep anyone at home, then do inquire about it. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. And with this, the story of this movie ends here.